everyone. The City of Revere's School Committee is now called to order. Please rise and salute the flag. I was just gonna say that had to be the best Pledge of Allegiance that we've heard in a long time, because it was great to hear so many young voices. Roll call the members.
Mr. Ferranti? Here. Ms. Garbelisi?
Here.
Mrs. Rizzo?
Here.
Mr. Sinella? Here. Ms. Ty?
Here.
Mr. Visconti? Here. Mayor Rodrigo?
Here. We will start with the superintendent's report. Dr. Makoba.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First up, we have our second grade students from the A.C. Whalen School presenting their Thankful Brunch.
So, Ms. Flynn, do you want to give a little synopsis before we? Oh, they're in charge. Okay, all right.
Hi, my name is Ariana Stillman, and I am in Miss Petroni's grade 2 classroom, and I am here to tell you about the family breakfast that grade 2 has at the A.C. Whalen School. The family breakfast is an event hosted by the second grade students. The students create invitations, make decorations, prepare the room, greet their guests, entertain their guests, and clean up when the event is over. Students were able to choose which committee they wanted to be a part of. I was part of the RSVP committee. We kept a list of who is coming so we knew how much food to get. Hello, my name is Melania Bartolini. I am in second grade at the A.C. Whalen School, and my teacher is Mr. Marco. We created invitations. Students created invitations for their families. Families RSVP to the students and classroom teacher. Hi, my name is Charlotte Palermo. I'm from the Whalen School. I'm in second grade. My teacher's name is Nelson. Students in each room create family members as they arrived. Family were given placemats with activities to do. Family were given favors as a thank you as they left the breakfast. Hello, my name is Rania Gota, and I'm in Miss Doherty's class, grade 2. Buffet style. Students assisted their families in getting breakfast. They also made sure to keep the buffet clean. Activities. Students taught and played games with their families.
Hello, my name is Paul Tappan from the A.C. Whalen Elementary School. I'm in grade 2. My teacher's name is Savilski. 7 habits of a happy kids. Habit 1, be proactive. Students were proactive planners. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. They begin with the end in mind and had a successful family event. Habit 6, synergize. They synergized and worked together to make it all happen. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. Students and families were able to sharpen their saw by relaxing and enjoying the company of each other. These are some of the pictures that were during the family event.
Thank you very much for welcoming us tonight. As you can tell, the students actually coordinated the entire leadership opportunity, and that's why they wanted to lead, is because it was an opportunity where they started from the beginning till the end. Thank you very much for having us.
Excellent job. Any members have any questions? Mr. Visconti, I saw your picture up there. You sure you don't have any comments about the breakfast? How was breakfast? Mrs. Rizzo.
And what kind of food did you have? I'm all about the food. Anyone answer? You can all come up and answer.
We had juice boxes, donuts, Pop-Tarts,
Wow.
all breakfast stuff. Not in our class.
Mrs. Gravellisi.
You mentioned that you taught and played games with your families. What types of games did you play, and what types of games did you teach? And you want to come?
Go ahead, you can go up to the microphone.
We played a turkey game where on the paper we had numbers and there were parts of the turkey. And if we rolled that number, then we would draw that part on the paper of the turkey.
That must have been fun.
Ms. Chai.
Did you volunteer to do this leadership job, or were you chosen by your teacher? Or was it both? Well, why did you want to do it? Why did you decide that this was something you wanted to do? Anyone can come and answer. Step right up to the microphone.
I didn't really know like the reason why I was doing this, but the reason I think that I got to do this is because I just feel like I'm a very good reader, and it's easy for me to like to understand things, and I think this just would be a very good thing for me to do.
What a great answer. You are all such good leaders. All. And was it difficult to get here tonight? Not really? Are you anxious to go home and go to bed? No. Oh. I don't know, Mums. You might not be able to get them home right away. Well, thank you.
Mr. Visconti.
I would just like to say thank you. I was present, obviously, and it was nice to come in to the classroom and see how my child and all the rest of the kids work together. Breakfast was fantastic, so I want to say thank you for inviting me, and you guys did a great job.
Great job, kids. We'll take a 5-minute recess. We are back from our little break, and we are back on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Makova.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up, we have Amanda Scott, Chief Operations Officer, and Courtney Weber, Director of Education from Science from Scientists. We also have Mr. Matt Costa, STEM Director for the Revere Public Schools, here with us as well. They are going to be discussing their in-school model and teacher professional development that has happened with us over the duration of our partnership. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and good evening, everybody. So we just want to tell you a little bit about the Science from Scientists program and then dive deep into what we've been doing in Revere for the past couple of years, and then Courtney's going to talk with you about the recent teacher professional development program that we've been working on. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so our organization is facing this problem that you see in this picture right here. So when we look at our students who are at the high school level, they're really lacking proficiency and interest in science, technology, engineering, and math careers and fields. And so if you look at the next slide, what we see at the high school level is only about 17% of our kids in a nationwide report are proficient and interested in these 4 professions, the STEM fields. So our organization is really interested in, next slide, working with these 83% of kids that either are not scoring well in science, technology, engineering, and math, or they're just not interested, or they don't think they're smart enough to do it. And we want to inspire them and motivate them and help them see that they have a possibility to become a scientist, a technician, or an engineer in the future. Next slide. And if that's the problem we're facing at high school, then our organization likes to work at elementary and middle school here. Next slide. So you can see there's a lot of challenges that really narrow the pipeline at the elementary and middle school grades. Our organization spans this grade range. We work with students in grades 3 up to grades 8. And we're dealing with challenges in the classroom and in the school environments like social pressure around being a nerd or a geek or a dork, teachers that we work with who aren't comfortable or confident in science and engineering themselves and would like a little boost by having someone there to support them and guide them and coach them, time to prepare hands-on activities in labs and materials to do hands-on activities with those students. These are some of the challenges that our program is designed to address. Next slide. So we really have 2 focus points. The first one is to improve attitudes. When you talk to a student about science, engineering, and math, we want them to smile and say, yes, I'm excited to do that. And that has to do with how you prepare the material for them. So you want something engaging, you want something hands-on for those students, and you want the people who deliver it to be very charismatic, warm, and approachable people. And we think this is really important to improving students' desire to want to go into STEM fields. Next slide. The second part is aptitude. And if you think back to when you were in school, you probably liked a subject that you did well in. So if you found math or English very easy, you probably liked that subject more. So we want students to improve their confidence in STEM by helping them to score better on quizzes and tests. When you feel like you perform better in those subjects, you tend to like them more. And those 2 pieces we need to work on in conjunction together. And the way we do this is bringing in really great lessons that are tied to the frameworks that students need to be learning already, so we can help support that learning that needs to be in place for them. So the key way we do this is our in-school program. Next slide. Our in-school module-based program, the one that's operating in our schools here in Revere, is actually in 77 elementary and middle schools across the country. So we're an organization that started here in Massachusetts 15 years ago, but we've expanded to the Twin Cities in Minnesota and the Bay Area in California. But it's all been born out of lessons we've learned working with teachers and students, especially in Revere, where you'll see later we have a very long history in this district. So the learnings that we've developed working with your students and teachers have really helped to scale this program across the country. Next slide. We also do some fun out-of-school programs too. This is just designed to engage our families in enrichment over spring breaks, winter break, and summer breaks. So we've got vacation camps, science theater, and community presentations that we do, just so you have the full picture of science from scientists. Next slide. So what makes this program unique that's in your schools is we take place during the school day. So when our scientists show up, they're here from first bell to last bell, working with all the students at a given school in a given grade range that day. We have 2 scientists that come in. So when we bring scientists in, we're looking for folks that have an advanced degree in one of the STEM fields, and that they have some comparable industry experience if they don't have that advanced degree. So it's a lot of folks with masters, PhDs, DVMs, MDs, that are practicing scientists, engineers, and technicians. And we screen them to make sure that they are warm and approachable and charismatic for kids, because we don't want to put someone in front of the kids that intimidates them and furthers the perception that scientists are cold and that it's not a warm and welcoming career they want to go into. So we carefully screen and train these individuals to go into the classroom to best support our students. But we are not educators. We were not trained and licensed as educators. So we look to the classroom teachers in the district to be a support with the students in the classroom. So it's a partnership model. We're always present when the classroom teacher is present. We're a multi-touch model, so we're visiting the kids in the schools every other week for the whole school year. So it's about 18 sessions from September to June. We work around snow days, we work around testing, but we'll be there to deliver a different lesson each time we come in. And we track our impact. We do surveys and quizzes and all sorts of things to tell ourselves that we're being effective in the classroom, to be able to communicate to you that we're being effective in the classroom. Next slide. So before a visit gets set up, we work with the teacher to select which lesson that they want to have come in. The instructor on our side prepares all the materials for that teacher. So everything that they need to do the lesson, we pack and bring with us. So we have a lot of kits in our office, and each kit has all the materials for those kids. Next slide. When we're there, we see all the kids in a given grade. Usually we can see the entirety of 1 or 2 grades, depending on how large the school is. We bring everything in. We're modeling in the classroom while the teacher's present, so it's, in a way, it's an embedded form of professional development, having a scientist who's there to do simple things like just pronounce a word, or show you how to use a microscope, or just explain a concept in a different way that you hadn't thought of before. So as the teacher, you can watch and observe all of this happening, and you can talk to us and give us feedback throughout the day so that each class we see of yours, we get a little better each time, just like a teacher would. Next. And then after the visit, we send the teacher some follow-up materials if they'd like to build on that and extend the lesson they saw in the classroom. Courtney will tell you a great story about that for the Teacher Professional Development Program. We tally all the quizzes that we took with the students so we can see, did students score better after our lesson than they did before they saw it, and then we pick the next lesson to come in. We also have a little blog on our website where we post a summary for the families so that they can log in and see what happened in the classroom as well. Next slide. We have over 90 lessons in our library, and they cover all sorts of different areas. We've got anatomy and physiology, we've got some life science, some physics, some scientific method. When we started in the program, Courtney and I, we only had about 20 different lessons available. So we've been building the library at the direction of classroom teachers, just like yours. They tell us what their needs are, where the gaps are in their materials and their confidence levels, and we build lessons over the course of each year. So this number keeps going up, and a lot of that is teachers telling us, what do they need help with? And how can we help design curriculum to bring in to support them? So this is an example of what we mean by a lesson. It's a lot of material. We have a prep document for the teacher to help get them ready. Talks about the vocabulary and safety and concepts we're going to cover. We have a lesson plan. We've got a worksheet. We actually work with a lot of your teachers to design the worksheet in a way that best supports their students' learning. So if they're working on descriptive sentences or they need sentence starters or stems, we actually work with the teachers to edit those worksheets to best work on what students are doing. So we might add a graphing component if that's something that we want to practice in math, but we're going to do something in science that allows the students to work on that graphing component. So this is a really collaborative document we go back and forth with the teachers a lot on. And then we've got the follow-up activity for the student and then a follow-up for the teacher that includes some open response questions that they can use as well. So we try to give them wraparound support for every lesson we're bringing in, all 18 of them throughout the year. Next slide. Each of our lessons is informed by the Next Gen Science Standards and the MASTE framework. We take that, we write that into an objective. Each lesson also allows the students to explore the science and engineering practices, which we love as scientists ourselves, Courtney and I. These are the skills and behaviors we had to hone over many, many years that helped us be successful in our fields. And it's what we love to see students start practicing as early as 3rd grade that we work with. Next slide. We do lots of assessments, as I mentioned. We do pre-post quizzes from released MCAS questions to help students get used to how they might be assessed on this material. We do open response questions that they can work on their writing. And we just do some basic dipsticking, an informal assessment that tells us in the course of the lesson, are the students getting the concept? And that might be drawing a picture or putting a Post-it note on the board to tell us, where's your thinking at when I'm about 2/3 of the way through my lesson? Are you following me, or should I go back and try to explain that again a different way? These are all methods we've learned from working with teachers just like yours, so we can get better ourselves each time we teach. We do lots of trainings for our staff, internal and external, again, trying to help our folks who have science and engineering backgrounds be comfortable and confident teaching in the classroom. We know every minute of class time is precious, and we need to be very, very well prepared in order to take some of that time during the day. Next slide. Nationwide, you can actually click through a couple here. You can see that we do our quizzes across the country. We can actually track the science MCAS, and in other states it's called MCA. So we can tell that our program is helping to improve those aptitudes that I spoke about. The attitude side, we survey the students and the teachers, and we've been surveyed or evaluated by a third party group called PAIR that's really looking at 21st century skill development in our program. Are we helping students to be better at perseverance, grit, critical thinking, and relationships with peers and adults? So we, as scientists, we're very nerdy about our data, and we like to make sure the program is being effective for our partners. Next slide. Nationwide picture of who we're reaching. It's about 93,000 students, 9,300 students. Next. Just gives you a sort of a preview here, the students that we're serving. Keep going. There we go. And next. And then this is where we're at in Revere here. So you guys have actually been some of our very earliest partners. We launched the in-school program in 2004-2005 school year. So you had some of our earliest adopters here. Garfield Middle is one of our last schools to come on. We're serving 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade across these different partners. And I just wanted to show you, this is to date on the right there, what your students are scoring in those pre-post quizzes. So we go in, before I start talking about states of matter, we give a pre-quiz. When I come back 2 weeks later, you get the post-quiz, and this is the improvement for your elementary and your middle school students. So this tells us that the teachers are picking the lessons very well. They're picking content that the students need to know, and we're timing it in such a way that we're able to help the students learn this content through hands-on learning, and they can demonstrate it 2 weeks later. Yes, I remember that. I remember you guys going over that. Next slide. And now I'm going to hand it to Courtney, and she's going to talk to you about the Scientist-Teacher Partnership Program. It's our professional development program. It's about 3 years old now, and so she's been leading that up. So she'll tell you some stories about what we've been doing here.
So the Scientist-Teacher Partnership Program, while it is young, we piloted it in Revere. That was purposeful. We love to start our field work with Revere. They're very good at giving feedback, but we also have a really good collaborative partnership with them. So our Scientist-Teacher Partnership Program, or our STP program for short, we love our acronyms. It's a 5-day professional development program where teachers will feel more comfortable preparing and leading their hands-on materials that we bring into the classroom. And it helps them incorporate the field-tested lessons that we bring into other classrooms as well. This particular year we're doing engineering. It's one of those topics that teachers tend to feel not as comfortable. This is anecdotal. They don't feel as comfortable teaching it, especially to the younger grades like 3rd, but when they realize how accessible it is to their students, they are very excited to take those lessons back into their classroom. These are just a couple pictures of teachers doing some of these lessons during the STP program, which is actually held in this room. I was here last Thursday doing a really fun lesson on saving the beach, which we'll talk a little bit more about what that is in a second. So our impact in Revere, you'll see this is just for the STP program. We've had a little bit more than a quarter of our teachers earn graduate credits through this partnership with Endicott. The rest of them do get professional development points. Our goal for next year is to extend the program more widely to 3rd grade teachers. More recently, we've had 4th and 5th grade teachers in the program. So since our inception 3 years ago, we've given out 132 engineering kits. Actually, right before I came here, I was dropping off buckets of sand and engineering kits to Paul Revere and Garfield Elementary School. So I don't have any sand on me now. So we've done things like work with Rube Goldberg machines. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with those, where you have a very complicated contraption to carry out a very simple task like wiping your face with a napkin. So students really love that lesson. We have them ding a bell with a number of different materials. Saving the beach, like I mentioned, we we have a little paint pan where we have sand, water, and students have to engineer some sort of design to prevent sand from eroding, which is a great lesson for Revere Beach and Revere. So we also had one of our teachers from last year come and present this year to this year's cohort and talk about what they did, an 11-week unit on the Rube Goldberg machine and teaching energy transfer. So she did a fantastic job on that. So with the STP program, we also have with our teacher, we'll treat them as a co-instructor, but we will bring in one science instructor into the classroom to help them implement those lessons that they learned, but also other additional lessons they might want to see in their classroom. So they'll still have us for about once every other week. And we just wanted to leave you guys with some quotes from some of the teachers, what they said about the program. It is still early in its inception, and we've been changing it based on teacher feedback, but overall it's been a really good amount of feedback, and they've said good things. So we're happy to be here, and we would like to continue to do it.
And I just want to say one thing. I'd like to really thank Matt Costa for his support in this entire partnership. Matt's been working with Courtney and I very closely to help us add schools, to help us better serve the teachers, better serve the students, and he's instrumental in the design of this teacher professional development program. So thank you, Matt. We'll take any questions.
Any members have any questions? Mr. Sinala.
On the kits, are they reusable, or are they so that they can be supplemented and augmented?
Yes, yes. The bulk of the kits are reusable. There may be some consumable supplies. If the cotton pads get wet, they might need to be replaced. And that's why when we leave these kits in the schools, we will be back in the schools every other week so we can help provide those missing supplies.
Thank you.
Ms. Gravellisi.
Are you in all of the elementary and middle schools every other week, or do you rotate between the district?
So we're in all of the elementary schools every other week, and then we're in Garfield Middle. It actually takes us 2 days to get through all the 6th grades at Garfield Middle. We would be very excited to expand to the other middle schools as well.
Any other members? Thank you. Oh, Ms. Chai.
Oh, did Matt find you, or did you find Matt? In other words, how was Revere selected? I mean, I know that we're the greatest, but how did you know that?
So actually, the partnership in Revere predates both Courtney and I. I've been with the program now for 6 years, and Courtney's been with us for 5 years. And Revere was a partner prior to us signing on, but I think it's you guys that probably found us. You've always been on the cutting edge of making sure that you're providing the best for your students and teachers. And we've been working with Matt since Courtney and I have been part of the program. And fun story, actually, Courtney and I, when we do other jobs outside of teaching in the program, but we both first trained at schools in Revere. Back at McKinley, before it was the Hill.
Before it was the Hill.
Before it was the Hill, yeah. So we were both at McKinley, and we trained together. That was my first placement when I first joined the organization, and it was Courtney's as well. So it's really been your teachers that have helped us become the educators and the presenters that we are today. So.
Well, I love your description of what the presenters should be, especially that they need to be charismatic, warm, caring, and so on. Because sometimes there's a stereotype that scientists are not that. And I think that's really important for kids to see it another way. And then you talked about quizzes, that you wanted them to succeed on that.
Yeah.
So what specifically, or maybe not too specifically, what do you do to make sure that they succeed, say, on the first quiz so that they don't get discouraged?
That's a great question. So our first quiz is sort of a pre-quiz, and we try to tell the students we just want to assess baseline learning before we came in. We might be at the beginning of the unit on energy, for example, or we might be midway through, but we just want to know as we give that quiz out, where's the learning while we're walking into the classroom? It's been 10 days since we last saw them. So what have they learned? What do they know? Then on the post-quiz, what we're doing is hoping that something from the lesson has stuck out to them. It's a vocabulary word that they learned, or we're looking at claims, evidence, and reasoning, and we're looking for them to select the right claim that supports what's going on. Would you describe an experiment? Or if the answer might be a claim, tell me about the evidence you'd need in order to get to that claim. So we try to get the students to recall something from the lesson on that post-quiz, and then we review it with them to make sure that no one's left with a misconception or misunderstanding.
So when you go into a school like the Hill School, are you there all day moving from classroom to classroom?
Yes, we're sort of a traveling science program. Yes, so we'll jump classroom to classroom.
And is there a different kit in each classroom?
We take the kit with us.
Only one
so
kit?
We'll take the kit, yeah. So it has about materials for 30, and if we've got materials that we go through quickly, like dry ice or milk, or if we're dissecting flowers, we make sure that we have enough for the students to work in groups of 2 and 3 on that activity.
So how do you adjust for the difference between grade 3 and grade 5?
When we're preparing to present, working with the classroom teacher so that they tell us, where is the student learning at and what are you really looking for the students to get out of this activity? How can I best support? So if we're at the beginning of the unit on plant structure and we want to talk about, what do the roots do versus the leaves versus the stem versus the flower, we want to really focus on what's the function of the plant and how does it carry that out. We can focus on that. If we want to talk a little bit more about photosynthesis, we can start talking about which parts of the plant are involved in that. So it's really this ongoing collaboration with the scientists and the classroom teacher that's going on in the in-school program that Courtney's program really starts to build on and empower those teachers so they can be the primary presenter of information. And now we're in a support role in the back, helping to prep materials, cut flowers, smash ice, whatever it takes to get that classroom teacher ready so that he or she can present.
Thanks very much. It's just a wonderful program. Thank you. And thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much. Matt, would you like to say anything, or? Good? Okay. All right. Oh, Mrs. Rizzo, sorry.
I get my 2 cents in anyhow. Just for anyone that doesn't know this, I'm a big Amazon shopper, and they have a program called Amazon Smiles. And your program is under that list if you want to donate. All you do is put who you want your donations to go to, and they get 0.5%, I believe, of everything you purchase. You made big bucks from me, by the way. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Sinella.
It's rather interesting. I'm a former elementary school teacher myself, and somehow back in ancient times, science always took a back seat. it'd extend a language class or something like that, and if the teacher got to it, they got to it and everything else, and at that time, Dr. Nofitano was a traveling science teacher, and he had the whole system. So for you to hit a grade every other week, I mean, as a teacher, I would have loved something like that, because supplying it in those days was difficult. This is already done.
Yeah.
So it's very nice.
Yeah,
Continue. Thank
we've
you.
tried to remove those barriers so we can just have fun with science.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
I can do this.
All right. Dr. Makoba, continue with the superintendent's report.
Thank you. The next thing I want to talk about is our project equity update. On January 8th, at 3 locations across the state, educational leaders, school committees, politicians, policy advocates all gathered to draw attention to and advocate for students through an overhaul of the funding formula for public education. Our particular region gathered at Malden High School, where a panel consisting of Dr. Mary Bork, Superintendent of Chelsea Public Schools, Tom Ambrosino, City Manager Chelsea, Dr. Dave DeRusi, Superintendent of Saugus Public Schools, Mr. Aldo Petronio, Chief Budget Officer of the Brockton Public Schools, Mayor Kim Driscoll from Salem, and our own Dr. Diane Kelly, all presented to the community in a panel-based discussion. The panel was facilitated by Kathleen Smith, Superintendent of the Brockton Public Schools. The focus was to highlight the funding inequities resulting from the current Chapter 70 formula and gather support for the recommendations of the Foundation Budget Review Commission's work. The specific target areas included funding to support healthcare and special education costs, as well as to provide additional funding for ELL students and low-income students. In order to meet these budget gaps, funds are often reallocated to other areas to compensate. This results in such things as larger class size, fewer opportunities for teacher development, and for instructional materials and supplies, and fewer resources for operations and maintenance. The cumulative effect of this antiquated formula has definitely taken its toll. There is a sense of urgency to act now and to push for change this year. We were thrilled to see so many of our teachers, administrators, school committee members, parents, and members of the community and elected officials at this forum to draw attention to this very important cause.
Any members? Ms. Tai.
It was a really great experience. They had expected that there would be 200 to 250 people, I think, tops, and they were over 300, so that was a wonderful one. And everybody spoke. It was nice to know that we had lots of oars in the water. You know, former Mayor Tom Ambrosino, Dave DeRusi, former principal here at Revere High School, of course our own Dr. Kelly, who was superb, and the Chelsea superintendent with whom I worked, you know, ages ago. She's been there for quite a while, and she's a great person. And I did feel confident coming out of there that the elected officials who were there, higher up than our pay grade, certainly, were positive about being able to solve the problem that we have been dealing with for so long. So I think this is just the beginning, though, and we have to keep moving. And not I think it is, I know it's the beginning, and we have to keep moving at it, because first they have to fund the formula, and then they have to change the formula, you know. So it's a two-part deal, and it'll be a long time, but the fight is worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tai. Any other members? Mr. Sinella.
They're talking of changing the formalization, but being 361 cities and towns, everyone wants their piece of the pie. Is there any indication that the urban areas where it's a bigger drain and the tax base is on as great, that may be changed also?
So I think and Dr. Makoba can maybe speak to this a little bit more, but the formula is so convoluted and hasn't been updated in so long that there are so many factors that are not taken into account. And you know, one thing that's been interesting, I think we've been a little bit of an anomaly where I think there was a Boston Globe editorial that talked about there need to be more Reveres, and there need to be more Reveres because we do a lot with very little, comparatively to other districts. And so we're a victim of our own success in some ways because we do so well with very little and without an update in the formula. But if you look at some of the variables in that formula, they haven't, like I said, they haven't been updated, and they would ultimately, hopefully, improve the funding that we get and the funding that some other urban districts get that have been historically kind of passed over. So.
The only difference is it seems as though the legislature has one idea and the governor has another idea. So if somewhere along the line, a meeting of the minds will have to prevail. But again, when you're dealing with 361 cities and towns, each senator is looking for their district.
Right. And that's when we are very hopeful and grateful for the fact that we have the Speaker of the House representing our city. So we are lucky to have that. And I know that Speaker DeLeo will be a strong advocate for the city of Revere during those negotiations.
Mr. Chairman, one question.
Ms. Franti.
Do they have, I know they're talking about, do they have any idea when this possibly can be changed, or it's just gonna go into committee and last there forever?
So I haven't heard much about the details. I know last year there were dueling bills in the House and Senate, and they couldn't get to a point where they were able to come to an agreement in conference committee or get to conference committee. It's obviously going to have to go through the legislative process. So we may be looking at where the legislative session is 2 years, we may be looking at a 2-year process. And I think what Ms. Tai mentioned in terms of it being a long fight, or it could be a long drawn-out fight, is that this seems to be the issue that is on everyone's agenda, including the governor. The governor talked about it extensively in his inaugural address. So it's on everyone's radar. It's just going to be a matter of how everything kind of works out and what the gory details are as they go through the legislative process. So, hope for the best, right? Mrs. Rizzo.
It was a great equity forum. It was very good. What was also nice that week was Senator Chang Diaz brought up a bill on Tuesday to the MASC and to some other groups. And then on Wednesday morning, she reintroduced her promise bill. And Superintendent Mary Burke was there. One of their students, Jose Cruz, was there. He did an amazing job at telling legislators what they actually need and what he's not getting. You know, they talk about the foundation budget review, the final report, and they talk about how many recommendations are needed. But the one thing that they never address is the English learning language, the low-income students, and the health care funding, and also the special ed funding. So the work has been done. It's been said many times. Now we have to go out and get the legislation, get all our legislators on board. So we're hoping that anyone and everyone can make a phone call, email, a little note card to the State House and let them know your feelings on them. If Jose Cruz can do it, being a student, then we all can do it as adults. So congratulations to MASS for giving that equity forum. Also to Senator Chang Diaz, Sal D. Domenico, Alice Peisch. They always worked hard. They've been working hard for a couple of years on education, so let's do our job and contact everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo.
Just,
Ms.
if I
Tai.
could just, Mrs. Rizzo just mentioned that. We have not only the Speaker of the House representing us and the other representative, Rosalie Vincent, and our own Senator, Joe Boncory, working for us. But Sal Di Domenico, who used to represent the portion of Revere, still has Revere close to his heart. And he has there, and the Senate last time had a bill that was acceptable. They just couldn't work it out with the House. So let's hope that they can now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Tai. Dr. Makoba?
Next, we have a presentation from Dr. Garcia on chronic absenteeism.
So tonight I'm here. First of all, I'm a little bit under the weather, but I will do my best to present. So, members of the school committee, parents, if you are home, if you're watching this presentation, this is a good one for you, because without you, we really cannot improve our attendance within the Revere Public Schools. So turn on your TV and watch this presentation, because we got to work together to make sure that we improve the attendance of our kids in our schools. This is a topic that has been a hot one everywhere, especially in districts where we have students, immigrant students, special education students, Latino, Hispanic. We talk about the urban districts. So it's a it's a hot topic because many of the districts are facing the same issues. Kids, students are not, a significant percentage of kids are not coming to school, and it's a big problem for a lot of districts. So first, let's talk a little bit about some of the reasons why students don't come to school. There are plenty of reasons. One of the reasons could be the socioeconomics. It has to do with poverty. Many of our immigrant parents, they don't have a stable job. They move from town to town looking for jobs, and sometimes, many times, they use their children as a source of income. So that's one. Another big factor that really contributes to students not coming to school sometimes is the lack of engagement and personalization between teachers, staff, and students. That's a reality, and that's the reason why Revere has been pushed so hard on topics like the social-emotional learning, personalized learning, cultural relevance or cultural proficiency. All these are soft skills that our teachers need in order to prepare them to deal with an increasingly diverse population. We're talking about ESL, we're talking about all kinds of students. Another reason can be the immigration factors. We have a lot of undocumented students, let's face it. And that's something that a lot of districts are dealing with. As we go through the presentation, you will see that, and I will tell you stories that I have read, videos that I have seen, districts in Massachusetts and outside Massachusetts that have been so desperate in terms of creating incentives and rewards for students to come to school. So it's a very difficult situation, but Revere, what's good about Revere is that despite all the challenges that we face, our schools still, most of our schools have an attendance 95, 94%, 92%, 96%. And obviously, it's something that we should congratulate ourselves and also congratulate our teachers and those who have been in the trenches dealing with this increasing challenge every day in our classrooms. So that's primarily due to the fact that Revere Public Schools has always been in the vanguard to really progressive, in terms of really coming up with ways in which we can engage our kids. So these are, when students don't come to school, these are some of the things that may happen. One, is an early indicator that the child is not going to make it if the child is not here. A child that is not in school is not going to learn. It's a predictor of academic failure because technically research clearly states that if a child cannot read by the 3rd grade, chances are, or has an attendance pattern of a pattern of not attending school since kindergarten, chances are that the child will drop out. So it's also a flag for struggling for at-risk students as well. And it's a financial burden for our districts because you have to allocate more funding to support those kids, come up with strategies to support our families and so on and so forth. So that's why, speaking about the forum that I just heard you guys talking about, a fair equity formula for our kids, that's where really we need money to support our kids. And that's the reason we should continue to push for funding for state really to help us out because it's a problem that we're facing. Next slide. So let's unpack some attendance terms. When you hear the average daily attendance, that's the percentage of enrolled students who attend school daily. When you see that, or you heard people saying, well, what's the average daily attendance in Revere? So that's the definition for it. When you hear that the term that, a student is truant, that means that the student has been outside the school at least for 21 periods, which equals 3 full school days in a year, and there's no valid excuse for it. There is no justification, there's nothing whatsoever. So the child just disappeared. We don't know the whereabouts of the child. And that's when we got Doug and others that, we'll have to look for the child, and if we cannot find the child, some legal, proceedings we'll have to follow. Because under the compulsory education, any child that's a minor child needs to be in school. So that's not secret to anyone. And then we have the chronic absenteeism. That is defined as the percentage of students missing 10% or more of their days in membership. Imagine that we're expecting a child to be here every single day, 100%. So if you miss 10% or more, then you are labeled at risk. So technically, you're missing 18 days of school, and or 2 days every other month. So that's a problem. And we have some examples in our district, unfortunately, children or students who, they're not here. So next slide. So summarizing the whole thing, here is the bottom line. We have student attendance stages. So the green is where we want all the children to be. So it's basically equals 9 or fewer absences, that's where we want all kids to be. So that means that if you look at the data that we're going to look in, soon, we're going to look at the Revere data, we will see that most of our schools are meeting the target. And one of the things that we have to be extremely cautious now moving forward is that chronic absenteeism has been made part of one of the predictors that will be used to categorize our schools, whether we are meeting the target or we're not meeting the target. The whole thing started this year under the new accountability system. The warning, could you back a little bit? Just quick. So the orange, 10 to 17 days, and the chronic, that's where the red, imagine the traffic light, that's where nobody wants to be. So next. So this is Revere. So look at our attendance. If you look at our attendance and the demographics that you have on the left column, you will see that we are still making good progress in terms of school attendance. For all students, we have 94.4. And then you have the socioeconomic, the economically disadvantaged students, we have 93.8. We're still there. You have even students with disability, you have 92.7. And we are above, actually, the benchmark that would, if it was 88, would be in trouble. Or 89, in trouble. 90, it's a cautionary area, to be honest with you. So, but the yellow column and the orange column, that tells you, that look at the number of kids who are absent 10 or more days. 34%, 34.2, 37, and so on and so forth, for all the demographics. Look at the Latinos, for example, and even our LEP, English language learners, and it's 36, 37, and it's something that we have to work on, and obviously I will show you some of the strategies that the district has been taking to address it. Next. So here you have all the blue, the chart that you see there, all the blue areas. That means that we're good. We're over 90. What color is that? Is that orange or? Okay. So the orange. Okay. So the orange, you can see that yes, we have to work on those areas, but we are above the 90. And we have Seacoast, obviously, given the nature of the school, obviously it's an intervention school. It's an alternative school. So obviously our expectations for kids to come to school every day, but we know the nature of that school and the challenge that we face. But some strategies, Mr. Magno, everybody, we've been working hard to make sure we got kids in school. And this data is from last year. It's not this year. So then you have other schools. We are all above 90%. So next. Some steps that that the district has taken to address chronic absenteeism in our district. I have met, and other members of the central office have met with principals, directors, coaches, and so on and so forth to review our data. That means reviewing the MCAS data, reviewing the access data, and reviewing also the interim reports that we get, the quizzes, the tests, the exams, all kinds of stuff that kids complete, to see some patterns and also to see some trends over time. And use that data to really develop intervention strategies to address the needs of individual students. That's what we've been doing. I met personally with all the principals. We surveyed the principals, we generated reports, we've been meeting with them, and the goal is to really try to address some of the gaps that we see in the data. We also have developed a tool that allows all the principals to track and monitor students. The DEC, the Department of Education, has come up with a tool called the EWIS, which stands for Early Warning Indicator. And also, that tool, actually, that it basically talks about, it provides all the information on every single student. It talks, information on whether the student has an IEP, whether the child, how many years the child has an IEP, the grades on MCAS that the child has received, the chronic absenteeism that the child has. There are other factors, and the goal of that tool is for us as leaders and teachers, coaches, and so on and so forth, to use that data to really look at the students who are really failing or students who are at risk and develop strategies to come out to address the gaps that they have. So we have developed a spreadsheet with all those areas that needs to be addressed, and principals are working on it. They have submitted a report to us. We are looking at the reports. There will be due dates that we're going to go through the slides and show it to you, when those dates are. And the goal is to work together as a team to address the gaps that we see in our system and to make sure that every child, benefits from a good education in our public schools in Revere. And we recognize the fact that we cannot do these alone. Schools cannot operate and do this type of work alone. Families have to be part of the equation, part of the process. And we've been working with principals also on creative ways of, working with the parents, making, instead of sending robocalls home, for them to really, record their own voices and make it more personalized for people. Hey, this is, Principal, Perella, I'm calling to really report that your child has not been in school. It's better that way than the robot call is very mechanized, and people really don't connect to it, especially immigrant parents. And also have translators to make those calls. Open house, letters, those are all things that, one-on-one meeting with parents, with, all that, those are all strategies that may help us address some of the things. Rewarding and incentive systems. I was reading, it's funny because prior to, early this morning, I was seeing schools that are so disparate in terms of bringing kids to school. And what they're doing is offering monetary rewards to kids. I've seen a school, I think is in Chicago, that was offering a car for kids to come to school. Can you imagine that? Going from 0 to 360, I don't know what interventions they have in place to do that, but that's a strategy they're using. A car at the graduation. If you really do well, you come into school, you do well, you are in school every single day, at the end, when you graduate, you have a car. I've seen schools in Massachusetts that offer reward, monetary reward, $25, okay, per kid. By the time you graduate, you have a bonus, $500 if you got perfect attendance. So there are many other schools. This is just to show you the magnitude of the problem. It's a big problem nationwide. So then also other things that we can do is to clarify, continue to reinforce our expectations for attendance with students, with parents, with the families, and so on and so forth. And we have to improve communication with parents. Communication in terms of, who's calling the parents? Are we using just English to communicate with parents? We are not using other language. We've got to make sure that, our principals, we are really using interpreters to do that. Educating parents about the risk factors. That's important. Sometimes kids, there are other factors, like, for example, violence in school. They're afraid to come to school. Parents are afraid. They're undocumented. They don't come to school. Kids are undocumented. If we don't create a welcoming, safe environment, they're not going to come to school. So these are all factors that we have to take into account. Next slide. So our job is not just to put more work in the hands of the principals. Our job as a central office is to continue to support the work that all principals are doing. And to do that, and because this is something new too to them, many of these things that the Department of Education, it's part of good practice, not because the DEC is asking us to do it, but this is part of the good practice. If we really want to close the achievement gap, this is the right thing to do. So one of the things we've been doing is to really train principals on the early warning indicator. This is a complete different, system of information that probably in the past they never use it, or if some use it, probably was not done consistently. So we are providing training with them, we're meeting with them one-on-one, having a conversation, deeper into the data, show, the data, and it's all data-based and data-driven to really generate good results. So we have a couple deadlines. We have deadline, if we're expecting something, then we have to really inspect, make sure that, principals are doing their jobs. So so there will be a mid-year progress review between February and March, and then there will be an end-of-the-year progress review in May, between May and June, and an end-of-the-year progress report in June. So we're going to meet with the principals and see the progress they have made, and then look at whether they have really, reached or, the targets. If they're not, we do modifications, we change things, we move along. Next. So some concluding thoughts on student attendance. Research shows that 14% of our students nationwide are chronically absent. So this is not a problem that is just Revere's problems. This is a nationwide crisis, but that does not mean that, we're going to, stick our heads in the sand and forget that we should, we should continue to really work with our teachers, with our principals, make sure that we address this. And there's nothing more important than maintaining positive relationship with parents and families and, and kids. That's number one. The second one is to ensure that we are accurately, collecting data, and we are reporting properly to the state. And we're reporting because if we don't report the data properly to the state is going to use the data we report and generate reports that are false and have no credibility. So we're going to make sure those things are working properly. We need to continue to clarify the expectations and goals for our, with our children, with our students, and with the parents as well. That goes from the beginning, at the beginning of the school year, throughout the school year, and the end of the school year. Meetings, little meetings. The assistant principals meet with the parents. Hey, remember that your child needs to be in school. That personalized conversation will take us far away. Develop personal connections. We have to really continue to develop personal connection with our kids, with students. And that's through training that our faculty receive. The social emotional learning. Know where the child is coming from. Meet the child where it's coming from. Don't teach here and pretend that, ignore the child that comes with a huge baggage that can be, the child can be having issues at home. It's coming from a divorced family. It's coming from, there's a lot of factors, socioeconomic factors, social factors that really affect, attendance every day. So we have to understand our families, where they're coming from as well. And we have to support our families facing barriers on a daily basis. That means that meetings with parents, it could be open house, talk about, attendance policy. All these are strategies that seem to be small, but are very important, that will support our families, our parents, and our children. So thank you for listening. Now, if you have any questions for me, I will try to answer those questions.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Any members have any questions? Mr. Ferranti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we're going to have a mid-year progress review report in February. Have we run any temporary numbers this year to see where we stand with the absenteeism?
Every single day, Jim Secuzzi, the director of ISMB, submits data is entered. But this year, one of the things that we did this year is that on Fridays, he generates reports that go to all principals in the district. So the principals use that report to compare and contrast the data to last year, and also use that data to really, complete the information that I need to complete that, because that they are going to use when the progress report is due on those dates that I just mentioned.
Just one more question, Mr. Chairman. Are the numbers, and I'm not sure if you've seen them, are they higher or lower than last year? Approximately?
That's an analysis that I have not done yet, but I will do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other members have questions? Ms. Tai?
Well, I'm looking at the 2017-2018 attendance, and it's all over 90%.
Yes.
So are we doing better than a lot of places?
Yes,
in
we are.
urban districts? And, maybe we should take some credit for that, too.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't look too bad to me. I realize when I look, if a kid had been out of my class 18 days in a school year, I'd be having a fit. But,
Yeah.
But I do know that kids get, they get sick, and they have times that they just do not come to school, or some of them have family issues too. So it seems to me that we're doing okay, if not great, we're doing okay.
Yeah. We're doing okay, and the issue is sometimes parents, especially at the elementary level, principals sometimes don't have control, because a parent may say, well, my child is sick,
Yeah,
and
right.
they take the child. So this presentation is not meant to really, it's meant to just to be an awareness for us to really understand that you know, we have to, if we're doing okay, that means we have to continue to do better and better. That's what this presentation is meant for.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Visconti?
Well, I mean, obviously, we would like to see the attendance obviously at 100%, correct? I mean, but it's unrealistic. I think what we'd like to do, well, I want to say thank you to the truancy officers who are in the trenches. They're out there trying to get, and that being said, Mr. Goodwin, Mr. Martino, Mr. Maglione out there trying to get these kids back into the school, okay? They have to build that relationship with the kids and make them feel comfortable, and I think it's important, the job that they do. So I want to note that and give them the credit that they deserve.
They do deserve a lot of credit. I see those three gentlemen in the trenches every day. They come to the office, and they usually, especially when I was a principal, I would see them every single day. They would come and talk to me, and they're great people, and they know and they love kids. And I remember Peter Martino, even on the days that kids would miss MCAS, he would drag the kids into the school to take MCAS. So it's they're all hardworking people, and the principals are hardworking people, the assistant principals. This is just, you know, it's Revere. We have a lot of strengths in this district. One of those strengths that we have in the district is the fact that everyone is all wrapped around the kid to make sure that students do well. But obviously, we have to really look where certain gaps are and try to fix it so that we can continue to improve if we are doing well, continue to excel in education. That's it.
Thank you.
Any other members? Mr. Sinella?
When everything fails, Doctor, when you meet with parents, you have X, Y, Z and everything else, and it still doesn't materialize, what is the responsibility of the parents?
All we can do is call them for a meeting. They usually come, or when the assistant principals call them, they do come. When we speak with them, they do come. There are others that are not responsive. Those who are not responsive and kids are missing for a significant number of days, we send Doug and others to go and check it out. And if there are kids that probably sometimes they have more than 10 days, 11 days, they don't show up. If they don't show up, sometimes we drop them, because that's what the law says.
But there is a parental responsibility under a certain age, and this mandatory attendance, has anything ever been?
Legal actions follow, and I think Doug does it. Doug and the other gentleman, what's his name?
Nick.
Nick. They are the ones who follow that.
And also, does the state have a formula if they miss a percentage of days, they automatically fail?
Yeah, well, we have one.
Yeah, if they,
Oh, that's just our local?
yeah, that's
Yeah, they have
a
one
local
in the
policy that we have in every school.
Maybe that's why we're 90+%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mrs. Sinella. Doc, one question. I know you mentioned the 14% of nationwide chronically absent students. Do we have an idea where we are regionally, or like what other districts look like?
There are districts, for example, like, we have members of the 5 district partnership that face a lot of challenges.
Are they higher than what we have there?
Higher.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's helpful too, just to understand
Yeah.
some of the context, right?
Yes.
And-
They share the same type of kids, the same demographics.
Right.
But I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the schools that actually was offering $25, this actually was in 2005, was Chelsea.
Yeah.
Right here.
$25.
$25, and then if a child, and then if you improve a tennis, by the time you graduate, on your graduation day, if you improve, then you get $500 at most. Yeah, but
Thank-
it was in 2005. I don't know if they changed.
Yeah, inflation. Thank you, Doc. Dr. Makoba?
And finally, I do want to make one update. As you may know, we have been accepted into MSBA's core building program for a new high school. As of right now, we are on hold until the eligibility period begins in June. We look forward to working with MSBA and the community to build a top-of-the-line high school for our students in Revere.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the public participation portion. Seeing none, move on to the consent calendar. Well, motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mr. Visconti,
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
Yes. It's passed. We'll move on to the report of subcommittees. There's none. No old business. No new business. School committee interests, any members? Ms. Ty?
Actually, Mr. May, I was going to talk about tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
can.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tomorrow night is, a great time. It will be at the Rumney Marsh Academy, and we'll be looking at Next Stop Revere, or Next Stop Wonderland, or
Next
or
Stop
Let's
Revere.
Move On Revere, or I can think of 1,000 good names, all of which indicate that we are moving forward. It's a very exciting time to be a citizen of Revere. It's been my privilege to serve on some committees about where we're going, and I love that we're going to ask everybody to come in and give their opinions. All of us have been in different places at different times, and this is going to be a place where we're going to get everybody else in, and I think it's just wonderful. So I hope everybody will join tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Ms.
I hope
Ty.
you'll say something.
I will. So tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at the Rumney Marsh Academy, we are inviting everybody to think about the next 20, 30 years of the city of Revere. And I wish I had known that you were so interested in the naming of Next Stop Revere. We could have had you in on those sessions, because it was actually pretty interesting to see the number of different ideas that came across my desk. But it's really important, I think, for us, obviously on this body, but in anyone in the city, to think about what the city looks like in the next couple of decades. And we haven't done a master plan in 40 years. The last one, I'm going to bring it with me tomorrow, I think. We dusted it off the shelves of the mezzanine up on the third floor. And it's interesting because it talks about some of the same challenges that we're talking about now. Development along Revere Beach. Of course, now we talk about resiliency and sustainability and climate change. But we have great things that are happening, and one big key point of the master planning process will be the high school, and the idea of a high school, and to elicit some thoughts from the community about where it goes, what it looks like, and how it can serve the community as a whole. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow night, obviously, and I hope to see everyone there. Thank you. Any other members? Any other interests? No? We have a motion.
No.
Well, it's on the agenda that we will table. Okay. Okay. So all in favor, all opposed. What's that? Carol?
I said move to table.
Move to table it. Okay. All in favor, all opposed. That motion will be tabled. With that, the chair will now entertain a motion for adjournment, with the understanding that our next meeting would be February 26th. Motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
We will be adjourned until February 26th.